All right, 1 minute now. Doing countdowns. Rocket science. I've always said human design isn't rocket science. Yeah, well, it's nice to have all of you online as well. Nice to be part of the experience. All right, good morning to all of you, and welcome to day 3 of our journey. And nice you're all here. We continue to be blessed with extraordinary weather. I keep on putting this out on the air so people know that they've missed Florida in the north. But anyway, my theme today. And I'm really going to show you something special in that sense, and give you something to chew on for a while. From the moment that I had the capacity to be able to look at design, to look at anyone's design, to look at my own design, what was so obvious to me right from the beginning is that we got a terrible deal in this design business. We really did. I mean, you look at genetic imprinting. Now, genetic imprinting is really extraordinary. You know, all those little activations that you have, you know, beside all of those different planets and stuff. You know, all of that activation is wonderful. And yet when you look at all of that activation within the body graph, what you get to see right away is that, you know, it's a rather minor thing in a sense, because everything else is really so white. There's all this white. There is all this receptor in us. I mean, it's one of the things to come to grips with why we live in a homogenized world and why the level of consciousness on this planet is what it is that we are trapped in the influences that move through the openness, the natural receptors that we have to take in what is not us, what is different, that defines us, and in defining us, distorts the nature of our very lives. And where that distortion is at its most powerful is at the mental level. You know, yesterday I had the opportunity to talk about what human design really is, which is form principle. Form principle. It is about the transformation of the vehicle itself. It is about perfecting the vehicle, differentiating the vehicle, treating your body according to what is correct for it in order to lay a proper foundation. Lay a foundation for what? For awareness. And yet human design begins with something very simple. That is the mechanics of the strategy and authority that is there to take decision-making away from your mind. I've been doing this 23 years. I know a lot of smart people. You know, when it comes to giving up the mind, they are helpless. 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 They don't know how they can shed that. They don't know how. They get stuck in their head all the time, this and that. You know, the nature of life, what we see out there in the world, the real ugliness of this planet is about this thing here, this mind. And most people think that their mind is theirs. This is the first joke. It's like, it's my mind, you know? It was never your mind. I mean, never your mind. It's mind. Not mine, yours, it's mind. And mind has very little to do with you. I mean, this is where the struggle is in this life, right? Everybody assumes that their mind is about them. That it's for them, that it cares about them, that it wants to have a better life and a better future and a better this and a better that. And while you're going through all of that, it's torturing you. And all the things that your mind wants have nothing to do with you. It's to do with your conditioning. Human beings are incredibly conditioned. And that conditioning is not just something that you can look at the physical level, because obviously you can. But the most important thing to grasp about conditioning is that primary conditioning goes directly to mind. I mean, directly to mind. Think about what I'm saying. You're somebody that has an undefined splenic system. You got an undefined spleen. It's open. The not-self strategy of the undefined spleen is holding on to things that aren't good for you. So if you're a human being with an open spleen, your mind, that thing you call your mind, is always saying, well, I know that he beats me up, but I'm still going to hold on to him because what you have in your openness is a gateway to the manipulation and control of your mind. And then your mind is always at odds with you. You know, I've spent many, many years involved in elaborating on the substructure of the life and talking about the influences that are there in terms of the deep conditioning potential in a human being. Programs, primary health system, and rave psychology, very profound journeys. And for me, rave psychology, it is the only way to truly understand the nature of the human mind. There isn't any other way. And one of the things that's so profound in race psychology is that it is the only investigation, it's the only study that we have that goes deep, 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 deep into the conditioning of the mind. See, until somebody, a newcomer, whatever it may be, until you begin to understand that your mind is not something that you can trust ever for yourself, until you get to that point, you cannot change your life. Mind can be a beautiful thing. You can enjoy mine, but I don't listen to mine. My mind does not tell me what to do. It hasn't for decades, because it's not its job. Its job is here. Its job is in the outer authority that each and every one of us have a right to express our unique perceptive wisdom. But it's not about this mind being the controlling agent in my life, because I know my mind's fucked up. Like every mind. Because it's nothing to do with me. I have an open head center. The open head center says you think about things that don't matter. 70% of humanity thinks about things that don't matter. Think about that. Darling, the house is on fire. No, I'm thinking about how I can win the lottery. Think about things that do not matter. And then you think that's you thinking about the things that don't matter. That you're supposed to be thinking about the things that don't matter, and that the things that don't matter actually have some importance while the house burns down. See, no matter how beautiful the mind, you can never trust it to decide for you. Because the very basis upon which mind makes its decisions have nothing to do with you, because mind builds its decision-making process on your conditioning. So in going through this process of the race psychology program, there are so many levels of conditioning. And I wanted to be able to give my race psychology students a kind of, visual way of looking at one of the main elements of conditioning. It's what we have up here. It's called the not-self deck. And this not-self deck, what it represents is a way of looking at the 9 centers and understanding them in terms of the depth of their conditioning potential. Approximately half of humanity is primarily conditioned by their open centers. And the other half is primarily conditioned by open gates, plus, as a secondary level, those open centers. If you look at just about anybody's chart, because it's very rare to see somebody that has 9 centers defined, if you look at people's charts, you're going to see open center. And when you see that open center in your own chart, I want you to think about this in one way and one way only. This feeds my not-self mind. This is what feeds my not-self mind. This is what gives my not-self mind its foundation and its purpose. We live in a world of not-self purpose. You can see it in the madness of materialism and all of these things. Not self-purpose, not true purpose. Not self-purpose. The not self-purpose of an open spleen is to hold on to things that aren't good for you. You've got lung cancer. Stop smoking. Oh, no, I love it. I remember as a kid, I had a job singing in New York, and I was staying in a hotel in Greenwich Village. And I walked into this place, and there was a guy sitting behind the counter, and he was sucking on a Coke through his throat. Human beings, what the not-self will do, and it has nothing to do with them. These open centers feed your mind, create the foundation for the way in which your mind is going to make a decision. And the open center is not you. It's not like it's you. It isn't you. It is something that you're taking in from others that is a conditioning force that makes you uncomfortable. I grew up unemotional. I have an open emotional system. And the emotional system is the avoidance of confrontation and truth. I was the biggest liar as a kid. Jesus, I told lies that would make George Washington blush till he was bled on the ground. My mother would say, "Where were you?" And out of my mouth would come some story. I have no idea what that was about. Just avoid the confrontation. The moment the emotional wave would go up, I would go away. You hide. You begin to tell lies. You begin to tell lies to yourself. Truth disappears. That's not me. I'm a giver of truth, a deliverer of truth. It's what happened to me when my life changed. But I know the other side. I know that not-self mind of mine. And it never stops. Your mind is never going to be a trained dog. It's not going to heal. My mind still likes to come up with reasons why I shouldn't get involved. Because that's mine. And I will never stop having an open emotional system. Never. It is the nature of what I am. And remember something about openness. For all the ugliness that it brought into my life before, now, there's just about no one on this planet who knows more about the emotional system than I do. Because that's what an open center is for. When you look at your design, those things that are colored in, that's you. That's the student. And you look at all that openness, this is where you go to school in life. Are you going to be trapped in holding on to those things that are bad for you, or are you going to be wise about what's good for you? Are you going to spend the rest of your life avoiding confrontation and truth, or are you going to deal with things and face the music? See the openness in all of us? This is what keeps this world the way it is. This is homogenization. This is how it works. Because you spend your whole life running away from who you are and what is possible for you. It's gone. Because it's now been replaced with a not-self purpose. You've got an open ego. Huge. 2/3 of humanity have an open ego. And the open ego says, I am not worthy. I have to prove myself. And so you have all of these human beings walking around in their heads with, I am not worthy. And so somebody that they can't stand calls them up and says, I really need your help. And they go, yes. Because they want to prove they're worthy. Aren't I a good person? Aren't you going to love me for this? Pat me on the back. 2/3 of humanity have an open ego. 2/3 of humanity think they're worthless. You know how dangerous that is? I mean, we are killer monkeys after all. You give a killer monkey a sense of worthlessness, they will show you some ugly ways in which they'll prove their worth. Show me a suicide bomber that has a defined ego, and I'll show you one that will not pull the switch. Show me a suicide bomber with an open ego, and they will pull the switch with a smile on their face. I am worthy. My God will take me. The madness we live in is the not-self world. All these human beings thinking that they have original minds, regurgitating the same not-self crap over and over again, and never being able to live out their nature at all. You know, and then you just have people who just tread water until they're dead. That's what most of this world is. You know, this is not what we're here for. We're not here to be sheep. We're not here to be manipulated by what we are not. We're here to live what we are. What we are. All right, so let's take a look at this deck. And the first thing that you'll notice in this deck is that you can see, unfortunately my illustration is sort of cut at the edge, but it's got all the stuff in there. You can see that there are these 9 sort of card-like things. And the way in which they are laid out is identified on the left-hand side. So if you look at the upper left of each card, you'll see a number. And that number is the impact ranking. Now basically what that means is which one of these 9 centers in a body graph is the most powerful conditioning force. Well, if you look and see, number 1 is in the center, and it's the ego. Nothing is more powerful as a conditioning force than the open ego. Nothing. Nothing. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. I never thought it would be my life story that I would have to deal with people and their problems. Really, I never thought that was the way it was going to be. And because I've got a big fat ego, I never thought of myself as worthless. I thought of myself as screwed up and worthless. Never. You know, there was always some value. And then I go on the road. You know, I did thousands of readings with people. And they all feel worthless. And the ones who didn't feel worthless, the ones with the egos, wouldn't admit that they had a problem. And I would say to them, well, why are you here? You know, what do you want? You have to understand, you've got 2/3 of this planet walking around deep, deep within them. They feel like shit. I'm not good enough. I can't do it. I'll never be able to do it. These are the people that constantly are trying to find a way to prove to somebody else that there's something. Wow. What a trip. You know how empty that is as a life? You think those others care? You think they even notice? See, human design is not about the other. You don't do this for somebody else. If you're doing this for somebody else, please go home. You can only do this for yourself. You can't do it because I'm going to show them. I'm going to become enlightened. You're right. Right. Mom, I'm enlightened now. You know, take out the garbage. You can't. This is something that you do for yourself and only for yourself. And that means not for what your mind thinks. You know, it's why when I did these 2 together that I start with the PHS, please understand, if you don't surrender to the vehicle, you don't have a chance. It's not mind's bad. Please understand that. The very word comes from ma. It's from Sanskrit. It means to measure. Maya, mind. They're all about measurement. That's all it is. It measures this and that. My favorite mind story came from a student and a funny guy, Sheldon LeBron. Some of you may know Sheldon. Tells me this story about this guy who wakes up and he's got this incredible thing in his head. He's going to get rid of all of his possessions. He's going to sell his shares. He's going to clean out his bank account. He's going to take all his money. He's going to go to Las Vegas. He's going to go to the roulette table. He's going to put everything on 18 black. And then he thinks, hey, that's kind of crazy. You know, he goes to work. Next day he wakes up, this thing is in his head. Get rid of all your stuff. Take all your money. Go to Vegas. Do your thing. Day after day, his mind is at him. Finally, he says, okay, hey, this is what we're going to do. So he gets all this money, and he closes everything down, and he goes to Vegas, and he goes into the casino, and he gets to the roulette table, and he puts all the money on 18 black, and it comes up 13 red. And he goes, shit. This is mind. You see, you will make a decision with your mind, and it turns out to be the worst, the most stupid thing that you've ever done. And your mind never says, wow, am I bad at this? Your mind says, look, we can do this now. As if you should trust it after it just destroyed your life. You're going to trust your mind to make the next big decision for you. This is insanity. Mind doesn't know whether this or that is really suitable. It just measures this and that. Like the Chinese, they've got a great saying. Good news, bad news, who knows? No pun intended. I mean, who knows? I've seen this movie so many times, right? You get some terrible thing, it smacks up against you, and every part of you is ready to say, oh my God, I'm a victim, right? But if you don't do that, if you just watch the movie, you don't know where that's going to take you. The mind doesn't know where this or that will go. All it can do is say, hey, look, there's a this and there's a that. That's all it can do. It's not in charge of this life. It's not in charge of what makes this life correct, healthy, viable, all of those things. And you see, the moment that you enter into your experiment of strategy and authority, what you're doing is you're stripping the mind of the one thing that it will do that will destroy your possibilities in this life. You're taking away the mind's control over your decision-making process. Because otherwise, it is these open centers that are going to give you your purpose in life. Those beings with that open ego, who don't know any better, they don't know that their mind is being conditioned this way. They have no idea. They think it's them. They think they're worthless. You know, when I tell somebody that I do a reading for has an open ego, you never have to prove anything to anyone, ever. It's a blessing for a incarnation. It's not a curse. I got a defined ego. You see what I do for a living? Prove, 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 prove. That's my job. You got an undefined ego, you got nothing to prove to anyone, to anything, ever, ever. Your worthiness is not in question. Mine is. But I'm born to be that way. It's my ego. If you got an open ego, you don't have that. That's not what your game is about. You're here to see what's worthy. Because that's wisdom. You got an undefined ego. You're here to see what's worthy in this life. You're here to see who is worthy in this life. You're not here to be a victim. You're not here to be identified with not being good enough. You're not here to be a damn slave because of it. If all the people with open egos would say no once in a while, the whole world would change. And they're so afraid to say no. Oh, they're going to think I'm a terrible person. No more Christmas cards. All right, let's take a look at number 2 on our list. 51% of humanity is emotional. That means we live in a wave, all of us. Deeply, deeply complex wave that moves from hope and pain and back again, and it never stops. It is incredibly powerful. It is also extraordinarily beautiful. It is where we have all our pleasures, our food and sex. It's where we have our experiential way. It is the emotional system that drives us to the fullness of what our lives can be. But if you are somebody, one of the 49% that comes into this world with an open emotional system, you are an amplifier of the emotional wave. These open centers, when you meet somebody, you step into their aura, or there's a planetary activation that brings you emotional definition. You amplify the emotional energy. It's not normal. When I look back at what I was like before my process began, it was so clear to me that I had emotional problems. I had emotional problems. It was obvious to me. I kept on, having relationships with emotional women because, of course, I had an undefined emotional system, so I was attracted to what I wasn't, to the pleasure principle, whatever. And when they were in a good mood, I amplified that, so I was like, wow, And when they were in a bad mood, I was sharpening my knives. And, of course, given that I have the 49th gate, I was very good at getting divorced. The knives were sharp, you cut the line, that was it. The distortion, the pain, the problems, all of the things that came with it. And me, totally ignorant, had no idea. Rising and falling, amplifying on somebody else's wave. You have to understand what's going on in the world out there. Think about the father that's like me, not emotional. As an emotional child, I have 2. The fact that both my sons are alive is an indication that I am really okay. And you think I'm joking? I'm not emotional. I have 2 emotional sons. Let's say I get mad at one of them, right? And they get cranked up emotionally. Do I ever get cranked up? There's a point at which that gets really dangerous. And it's not just fathers and sons and mothers and, and lovers and friends. It's every kind of connection. Think about it. It's an incredible thing. And if you don't know that, if you're not aware of that, your mind is living with that. It's taking you over. You spend all your time trying to figure out how to get out of it. I used to make a comment about unemotional children. You know, they have that smile that says, I don't want any trouble, and I'm going to be really invisible, okay? You know? Don't rock the boat, don't make any trouble, and live your secret life. 49% of humanity lives a secret life. 49% of humanity lives a lie. A lie. And a lie is deep. You see, if you avoid confrontation and truth, you need some pretty good lies. You know, you really do. These are the human beings that are walking around that have fooled themselves into thinking that this is the way it's supposed to be. That we're supposed to be sick, that we're supposed to be disturbed, that we're supposed to have psychological problems, that we're supposed to be giving our children heavy drugs in order that they can sit in school. This is all supposed to be normal. See, people don't want to deal with the truth. 49% of humanity does not want to deal with the truth. 2/3 of humanity thinks they're unworthy. Are you beginning to get the picture? And this is what's driving them. That person with the emotional system that's open spends all of their mental time trying to figure out how to avoid confrontation and how to make up for the fact that they have no truth, so they lie. Oh no, I'm okay. Right. That's number 2. Now think about what it's like for you. If you've got number 1 and number 2, you know, it sounds like I'm doing one of these television shows, right? Behind door number 1 is the big whore, you know? Behind door number 2 is the second big whore. Now let's say you have both of those open in your chart. You got an undefined spleen, you got an undefined ego. You're really a mess. Now think about it. And I'm not speaking specifically to you. Think about that person that's out there that you're going to meet in the street, got an undefined ego, and they got an undefined spleen. These are people that got really bad habits. They have real problems. The way in which they're looking at the world, the way in which their mind is working when that mind meets you. All right, let's get to number 3 on our list. You know, one of the things about what it is to be us is that we have a holistic process. And we have a holistic process we call our lives. And this holistic process is about our frequency. So much of what I actually teach is about the music of what it is to be us, about the tuning of our frequency so that our frequency is correct. You know, when the not-self mind is ruling, the frequency is distorted. When the frequency is distorted, we lose our cognitive potential. We lose that potential to be able to achieve what is our purpose and what is, in particular, our outer authority. That is the ultimate expression of the potential of our personality. When you look at the G center, you're looking at the core of being. You're looking at the core of being, and that this is where the monopole is, and through the G center, the whole mandala, the whole process, all of these things are brought together. It is the magnetic monopole that holds us together in that illusion of separateness. This is the sense of the holistic identity that is there in the G. Now, the undefined G center as a not-self purpose is about not being able to find love and direction. Always looking for love and direction. And always looking for love and direction doesn't mean that you get it. Because even when you have it, you're still looking, because it never stops. Open centers don't stop doing what they do, and they don't stop influencing you in the way that they do at the mental level. If you believe them, then you get stuck. Think about somebody with an open G who falls in love. You know, they have one of those nice honeymoon bliss days, weeks, maybe. But the whole thing about being an undefined G is that even though you're blissed out and in love, you're still looking for love. I mean, you're still looking for love, so there's a part of you that goes, well, maybe this is not it. I mean, maybe this love that is so delicious right now and is so blissful right now, maybe this love is really something empty because I can feel that I'm still looking. And you see, if you don't understand that, it's going to mess up your relationships, right? You know? You seem like you're not here, dear. No, I'm looking somewhere else. It's the same thing with whatever the place may be. Same phenomena. You know, the serendipity, you're a generator with an open G and you get asked if you would like to, stay in this place for a vacation and you go, yes, blah, 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 and it's all correct and you get there and it's a lovely place and everything is really nice and yet there is a part of you that's saying, there's another place somewhere, because it's never enough. Because if it were enough, then your mind couldn't control you and the mind is not in the business of surrendering. Mind doesn't do that. Mind never gives up. It never stops being what it is. See, the great dilemma is how attached you are to your minds. You're really attached to them. And as long as you're attached to them, you don't see them. I mean, we're here to experience our personality. We're here to experience it. We're not here to be lost in it as a dysfunction. We're here to experience it. You don't experience it until you're free from your mind saying, I can't experience this because I'm so busy trying to figure out whether I should have crackers or oatmeal. This is the mind. See, until you're free of your mind making decisions for you, you never get to the core of who you are. And it's not like suddenly it goes away. I mean, this is the thing to really grasp. See, I watch my mind. I consider it entertainment. Truly, entertainment. It can't be anything else. Because if I take it seriously for a moment, I know where that road leads to. It's mind that's heavy and serious and worried and concerned and this. I mean, all mind wants to do is make sure that it controls you through fear. Remember, it's not your mind, it's mine. All of these openness, all of this feeding of the mental system is just to make sure that you're scared. The deeper the fear, the more you look to your mind to be able to do for you what it cannot do. Lead you out of the wilderness. And if your own mind can't do that, then you do the next best thing. The not-self is good at that. You ask somebody in authority to tell you what to do. And of course, they're going to tell you out of their not-self mind what to do. And you're going to go to those wonderful authority figures, right? You know, the not-self doctors and healers, the not-self, religious characters, the not-self spiritual guru bullshit, all that crap. See, as long as you're caught in the not-self mind, you're never going to live your own life. You're never going to be able to express what is your truth instead of regurgitating all the crap that everybody else repeats over and over again as if it somehow is the truth. I mean, you get to see that on Facebook, If you repeat nonsense enough, people think that it's there in the world. I mean, this is what it's about. This is what we all live with. You think about all the philosophies that people live with. It's just because they've been repeated over and over again doesn't mean they make any sense. They don't. It doesn't mean they bring anything for us other than control mechanisms. Those are all control mechanisms, homogenized control mechanisms that feed on your mind and keep you locked into the homogenized world. Because the homogenized world says, if you're going to be different, we're going to make you pay a price. It's the first thing. The world that we live in is not built for uniqueness. It's built on old, communal, homogenized patterns. Everybody bows down at the same time. Everybody repeats the same stupid prayers over and over and over again. This mechanism of homogenized nonsense. Jesus is going to save me. This is not a good day for Jesus to talk about saving, but nonetheless, Jesus is going to save me, right? Sure, Jesus is going to save you. Yeah. I want to pray all the time, Some authority is going to be able to be there, Somebody else is going to decide for me. Not only do they not decide for themselves, they pass the authority along, so you finally get to a point where, you've got all these people that are being just simply conditioned by their governments, their religions, their this, their that, and you've got the same frequency. I mean, it's all around. And it's because human beings live their lives out of their openness. It's the openness that conditions your mind, that tells you the way in which your mind is going to think. You've got that open G-center, and that open spleen, and that open ego. Wow, think about that. This is the way your mind works. So somebody comes up to you and says, oh, nice to see you, would you like to do this? And you've got your open ego saying, yes, we better do it. Because if we don't do it, we're really going to have problems. And your open emotional system says, yeah, it's okay to say yes because we'll avoid any kind of real confrontation because we don't want the confrontation. And this is your mind getting you deeper and deeper into a pile of crap that you don't even want to be near. And then you've got all the consequences of it, because when you do things that you're not here to do, you do not do them well. And the frequency that you put out is not a wonderful frequency. And that person that you thought you were doing the thing for so you could impress them and avoid confrontation is all over you. And it's a horror. And you go home and you say, never again, Next time I lie, That's what people do. Open ego, open emotional system. When somebody calls them up, they just lie. I'm dying, I can't come. If I was going to live until tomorrow, maybe, but I can't come. Human beings. Number 4 on the list is spleen. The open spleen for me is one of those classic examples of conditioning that begins so early in life. A baby comes into the world and it has an open spleen and it's afraid. Splenic system is our primary awareness system. It's our immune system. It is our basic biological protection system. And you come in with an undefined spleen and you're deeply insecure. And you've got your mother, the primary care for you in that early part of your life. Your mother may have a defined spleen. If she has a defined spleen, you've got that undefined spleen. You amplify that feeling. You cling to her. If she steps away just to breathe, you will scream and cry and yell and want her back because you don't want to be afraid. And that's going to be the symbol, the structure for you for the rest of your life. The rest of your life. That's not self. You'll hold on to anything. Don't even know why. And start before you could even, enjoy the possibilities of self-reflected consciousness. It started the moment you came out of the womb. We're not talking about conditioning that is just something that, is a fancy intellectual thing. It's physical, it's visceral, it's deep. And the way that we are programmed and negatively programmed starts right at the beginning of our lives. It's why dietary regimen is so important for children. Because primary conditioning is so physical at the beginning. Food conditioning. Number 5, the Ajna Center. The Ajna Center is where we conceptualize. And it's one of those things to think about. There's a lot of people, that is, 49% of humanity have the Ajna Center open. That's a lot. So you basically have half of humanity with an open Ajna Center and half of humanity with the center defined. Now those people who have the open Ajna Center, they're the ones that really can be a huge problem on this planet. Bless you. Huge problem on this planet. Because the reality is that these are the people that have to prove that what they're thinking is correct. These are the people that are constantly saying, no, the earth is flat. It's flat. I don't care what you show me. These are the kind of people where you show them satellite pictures and they go, oh, round. Give me a break, round. It's flat. It's all. It's flat. And they won't give up. They won't. It is the most embarrassing thing in the world for somebody with an open Ajna Center to be wrong. There's nothing more embarrassing. You got an open Ajna Center, and you say 1 and 1 is 4, and people start laughing, you're dead. You're dead. You need more perspirant than any store will sell you. You're dead. It's like, oh my God, It's the open Ajna Center. And it's that open Ajna Center that's feeding the not-self mind that says, no, we're right, it's flat, it's flat, it's flat. No, you're right, it's flat, it's flat. You want to live like that? Does anybody? Do you really want to give up your life for such madness? Because that's what people do every day. Every moment, every breath. As long as your mind is running your movie, it's running it on the not-self. And what's important for your mind is not what's important for you. What's important for your mind is dealing with all this pressure. I have to prove I'm worthy. I have to find love. I have to think about those things that don't matter. I got to do all this stuff. And only when I do all of that is it all going to be okay. And of course, for these people, it's very unfortunate because it's all a lie. It's not okay. And there is no resolution in not-self purpose. You never do get to that reward. You can't. You can't. But you see, it's a way in which the killer monkeys are kept controlled. It's the way through the not-self purpose that most human beings define their existence. Imagine spending your whole life proving you're worthy. You know how many people do this? That it's the only thing that matters to them? Is that they can somehow show those people that they don't know, don't care about, that somehow they're important, that they're worthy, that... What a sickness. The head center. I love the head center. Number 6. Don't denigrate it because it's number 6 on the list of 9. Eh? But thinking about things that don't matter is the greatest curse on this planet. It really is. I've been doing this such a long time, and I've met so many different fractals out of the New Age. Wow, do people think a lot about a lot of crap. Really, endless stuff that doesn't make any difference. And it doesn't matter. You see, it's not what your mind thinks about that is going to define the nature of your life. Your mind thinks about what it's conditioned to think about. You're not in charge of that. You're not. It only begins to change when you're not identified with the way in which the this and that process of your mind works. I find it very interesting. I'm 3 parts left, so I find it very interesting strategically to see the way in which my mind will look at different things. So it's interesting. But I'm not at that place where I used to be, whereas I watch my mind looking at these things and I say, ooh, that one's good, let's go with this one. That's when I would usually put my foot in the wrong place, or any other part of my body. Number 7, the root. The root of all evil, right here. The root. I'm a root fan, because I got an open root. If you got an open root, you really have trouble in life, I tell you. You really do. Where's the numbers on it? 42% of humanity have an open root. That means you're always under pressure. I used to be faster than a speeding bullet. There wasn't enough dope in the world, to keep me from burning my tires, if you've got an undefined root and somebody says to you, you've got a week to collate the Dead Sea Scrolls, you do it in 12 hours. And at the end of those 12 hours, you are really useless. And you think you've done something. It's like, oh, it's gone, right? It's never gone. It's never gone because the next moment, there's something else. People who have undefined roots, these are the dynamos that are constantly exploding all over the planet. They're under pressure. They're under pressure. Always in a hurry. Always in a hurry. Always in a hurry. I'm the kind of person that it's impossible for me to show up late. Unless I've been shot. Held and kidnapped. I'm not as bad as I used to be. I used to get to the airport before the flight from the day before took off. Now it's just enough to have a good nap. Can't do anything about that. You got an open route. You're under pressure. It says, you can go there now. Go. Doesn't matter that you're going to wait for the rest of your life. Go. Open route. And of course, open route people are the best slaves of all. I had a great experience here. I don't know how old I was, 17, I think. I had a summer job. And I was building railway track, if you can believe that story. Building railway track with Mohawk Indians in southern Ontario, not far from here. And I was the only white kid. And I was the only white kid because my brother-in-law was in that company and actually got me that job. And they didn't like the fact that I was the only white kid. because they knew I was there on nepotism, you know? And they were hungry guys, and they worked 7 days a week, and if you didn't show up, you lost your job. I mean, it was really tough, all of that. And so I get there the first day, and I want to show them that, you know, I can carry my weight. So, you know, I start spiking. This was our job. They were putting spikes in these rails. So I'm doing this for about 10 minutes. And one of these guys comes over to me and puts a really heavy hand on my shoulder. I mean, really heavy hand. And he says to me, slow down. He said, if you go fast, we have to go fast. Slow down. It was my first undefined, I mean, I wanted to go fast. I got an undefined route. I'm under pressure. I got to do this job. You know, and these guys are like, real nice and slow, you know, take it easy. Undefined route. So you got all these beings on this planet who have undefined routes, who are racing around. You know, they're the kind of people that they've got 20 minutes to get somewhere, you know, and they try to do it in 5 and they die. And no joke. These are people that are in such a hurry, you know, that it can devastate them. The other thing is that these are the people that always feel like life is a horrendous burden. Because they're the only ones who really get this, you can never get rid of the shit that piles up on you. You know, no matter how much you work, no matter how fast you go, you can never get rid of it. It drives people crazy. I mean, depression lies in the root center. There's a lot of people with open roots who just give up. I mean, they just give up. You know, they're the ones that won't get out of bed. I mean, they just won't face the world. And you see, you don't want your mind to be controlled by that. Do it now, do it now, do it now. There's your mind. Get it done, get it out of the way. All right, let's concentrate on it. Get it done. It's exhausting. And it's all you can end up thinking about. And if you've got an open root and you've got an undefined ego, you're doing it fast to get praise, you know, and what do you get? They just give you more work. Your boss comes to you and says, "Sir, we got this thing, I would like you to get it done this week." You get it done in 3 days. You think the boss is going to love you for that. Give you a raise, pat you on the back. Boss goes back in the office and says, "This is a fast worker, we'll give more." They give more. You know, and there's the open root pounding away. Never ends. Never ends. Interesting that the sacral system is number 8 on this list, would you say? 33% of humanity have an undefined sacral, like me. I got a totally undefined sacral. If you got an undefined sacral center, you don't know when enough is enough. I don't want to tell you how much of things I have done, where I have gone beyond enough is enough. I mean, so far beyond that I had no idea that there was such a thing as enough is enough. I don't know that one. It is one of the great diseases of projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. It is probably the most damaging thing in their lives, is that these are beings that are so open to exhaustion because they literally do not know when enough is enough. I mean, one of the great problems of the emergence of the projector as a force on this planet is held back by the fact that they're too tired. And that's not a joke. Literally, they're just too tired. And they're too tired because they don't know when enough is enough. They get overloaded. They get easily exhausted. And of course, that exhaustion for them is something that can be very detrimental to them physically, let alone psychologically. So for all of those, like me as a manifestor, for projectors, for reflectors, even though this is 8 on the list, for us, it's one of those number 1 things. If you have an undefined sacral center living in such a dynamic, generated world, you have to take care of your energy. And it means you need to know when enough is enough because you need to know when to rest. Because otherwise, you're not going to have the juice you need to be able to live this life the way it was intended for you. And finally is the throat. You know, the open throat is about needing attention. People with open throats are constantly trying to get attention, and they usually end up getting the wrong kind. And you know, if your mind thinks that your life is about getting attention, you end up doing things that are absolutely ridiculous, and they really backfire. What I wanted to share with you today is the horror. Truly. To grasp it for a moment. To understand that we're not in charge of the way in which the mind processes things. If you're not trapped by your conditioning, all these things that I've described become ways in which you see, with wisdom, the nature of the world. I understand the open emotional system. I understand the open sacral and root and the open head because that's what's open in me. And because they no longer determine the nature of my life, because they do not control my decision-making, I can see them without agenda. I can see them without subjectivity, without identification, but simply experience them as phenomena. At the beginning of my process, I was very uncomfortable with emotional beings. Now I love being around them. There is a depth and variety, there's a fascination in the way in which the emotional world operates that I get to see in a unique way. That I get to experience all the nuances of it because it's not me. Yet I am no longer a victim of its power to be able to distort the way in which my mind operates. My mind hasn't made a decision for me in over 2 decades. It's not its job. And I'm living proof that you don't need your mind to tell you what to do to be a success in life or to have a good life. It's not about mind. And that the closer you come to the reality of what's possible for you to live your life correctly, it's only then that you'll begin to see what your mind is really capable of. Its beauty side, rather than its darkness. Because we're all here to deliver our outer authority. We're all here to express our uniqueness. This is what our minds is for. It's for communion. One of the most difficult things to find in this world is somebody that you can talk to that doesn't bore you to death. And we all know that. It's one of the most difficult things. It's why people pay money to listen to somebody who's interesting. Because we're bored to death with what's going on at the intellectual level, at the communion level in our lives. Because it's not real. The one last thing I leave you with today is something to grasp. If your mind is both your inner and outer authority, it can only lie. If your mind has to control your life, then it will lie all the time. Because it cannot tell the truth. It will not be able to tell the truth. It will have its subjectivity and its agendas. And that's not what we're here for. We're here to commune with each other. We're here to respect, and we're here to be entertained by the depth that each of us has as a potential. This is what mind is about. It's about awareness. It's about raising the consciousness of this plane. But to live correctly, to live free of fear, to live your life as it was intended to live, it begins with strategy and authority. It begins with freeing yourself from your mind. Okay, thank you. Thank all of you online. Nice to see you all here. Andrea, you're next, right? Is it a Q&A or a lecture? Yeah. Lecture, okay. All right, coming up next 15 minutes is Andrea. And by the way, I will be closing out here, but those of you that are going to be here, enjoy the rest of your day.